Let's not sugarcoat this. Let's not wrap it in the soft, palatable language of modern romance. Every time you try to please a woman by bending over backwards, by changing the fundamental architecture of who you are, or by placing her fleeting happiness on the altar where your standards once stood, you are stepping closer to the slow, quiet death of your masculinity. You are not being noble. You are not being romantic. You are being submissive. You are meticulously, transaction by transaction, trading your spine for her attention. And the worst part, the part that hollows you out from the inside, is that she sees it all. She sees it all. She may smile. She may thank you. She may even go along with your self-effacing performance for a while, basking in the convenient warmth of your compliance. But deep down, in the ancient, primal part of her, that craves strength, her attraction dies a death of 1,000 cuts, because pleasing is not leading, and a man who has forgotten how to lead is a man who has forgotten himself. The downfall of a masculine man doesn't begin with a roar of weakness. It starts with the whisper of overcompensation. It begins with the toxic culturally ingrained belief that being a good man means ensuring everyone else is comfortable while you suffer in stoic silence. It is the insidious idea that love means sacrifice, even when the thing being sacrificed is the very essence of your identity. But women, real women, are not attracted to sacrifice. They are drawn to strength. They are drawn to clarity. They are drawn to men who can say no without the tremor of guilt in their voice. Men whose presence is a testament to a life lived on their own terms. When you contort yourself to make her happy at the expense of your truth, you don't become her hero. You become her puppet, a man she can control, manipulate, and eventually, inevitably, resent. You see it everywhere, a quiet epidemic among good men. They start strong, confident, grounded. They have hobbies that ignite their soul, friendships that sharpen their wits, and goals that pull them forward into the future. They are magnetic precisely because they are whole. Then, the moment they get into a relationship, they begin to lose their edge. The fire dims. They stop pursuing their goals with the same vigor. They stop enforcing their personal standards. They stop leading, and they do it all in the name of keeping her happy. But that isn't love. That is submission disguised as devotion, and women cannot respect men who submit. Not emotionally, not sexually, not spiritually. They might use you, they might tolerate you as a comfortable fixture in their lives, but they will never admire you, because admiration requires polarity. The electric dance between the masculine and feminine, and there can be no polarity when the man dissolves into the woman's emotional chaos, becoming a mere echo of her desires. A woman doesn't want a man who caters to her every mood. She wants a man who holds his frame when she loses hers. She wants a man who can be the calm eye of her emotional storm, not because he is indifferent or detached, but because his foundations are unshakable. He is the oak, and she is the wind. She needs to feel she can blow against him with all her force, and he will not break. But most men today think the way to win a woman's heart is by being agreeable, soft, and eternally compliant. They operate under the flawed logic that the more they give, the more she loves them. That's not how the physics of attraction works. The more you give without a foundation of self-respect, the less she values what is given, and once your value drops in her eyes, so does your power, your influence, your very ability to lead her, and yourself. Pleasing is a profound form of self-abandonment. It is a man saying, through his actions, I will silence my voice just to hear yours. I will dim my light so you can shine brighter. And while that might look achingly romantic in a 90-minute film, in the gritty, unscripted reality of life, it creates a toxic imbalance. It fosters an unspoken emotional debt, and a quiet, simmering resentment that festers in the dark. Over time, that imbalance becomes unbearable for both of you. She starts acting out, testing you, pushing your boundaries with increasing force. She does this not because she is cruel, but because her instincts are screaming for structure, for leadership, for the comforting presence of a man who won't let her run the entire show. She is begging you to be the man you were when she first met you. And if you consistently fail to deliver that man, her instincts will compel her to seek that grounding energy elsewhere. What's truly crazy, what's a tragic irony, is that the very behavior men think will keep her close to constant pleasing. The endless accommodation, the reflexive yes, is precisely what pushes her away, because it communicates weakness on a primal cellular level. It tells her that you value her opinion more than your own truth. It tells her you fear conflict more than you respect your own integrity, and that dynamic is poison to passion. Women can sense it. They don't always understand it consciously, they can't always articulate it, but they feel it in their gut. That gut instinct honed over millennia of survival screams, this man doesn't have a backbone, and when her instincts deliver that verdict, her attraction plummets off a cliff. You have to remember, your masculinity is not defined by how much you can do for a woman. It is defined by how deeply you are rooted in the truth of who you are. A man who knows his values, his path, his mission, doesn't try to please. He leads, he listens. Yes, he adjusts when wisdom calls for it, of course, but he never ever contorts himself to fit a woman's fantasy. He doesn't perform a ritualistic killing of his masculine essence just to keep the peace. And that, right there, is what makes him so intensely desirable. Because deep down, a woman craves to be led, to be grounded by a man's unwavering presence, not to be mothered by his desperate emotional dependence. So when you text her first, every single time, when you always say yes to things you secretly don't want to do, when you walk on eggshells to avoid the slightest chance of upsetting her, you are not being romantic. You are being replaceable, because men who please are everywhere. They are a dime a dozen. But men who stand firm in their own skin, men who are rare and sovereign, that rarity is what she respects. That refusal to submit is what ignites her desire. And that quiet, unshakable certainty in the face of her emotional storms, that's what keeps her coming back. Not your flowers, not your compliments, not your good morning texts, your frame. The truth is, the compulsion to please is almost always rooted in fear. Fear of losing her, fear of being alone, fear of not being enough. But fear doesn't lead, it follows. And women don't follow men who are led by fear. They follow men who walk in their own power, who speak from a place of deep conviction, who project an energy that says, this is who I am, take it or leave it. That attitude isn't arrogance, it's strength, and it is the only known antidote to the disease of people-pleasing, because when you stop desperately trying to earn her love, you finally become worthy of receiving it. So stop trying to please her, please yourself, respect yourself, choose yourself, not in a selfish, narcissistic way, but in a sovereign way. Be the man who leads with truth, not with tactics, with presence, not with performance, with standards, not with supplication, because when a woman sees that you don't need her approval to be whole, that you are already full, already clear, already grounded in your own being, she doesn't run, she leans in, she softens, she submits, not because you forced her or manipulated her, but because your powerful, authentic masculine energy gave her no other choice. It is the only safe place for her to finally lay down the burden of control, and simply be a woman. Here's what most men don't realize. When you constantly try to please a woman, you are not actually giving her security, you are giving her control. And control, for a woman in a romantic relationship, is a leaden burden she does not want to carry, even if she sometimes asks for it. The moment she senses that she is the compass guiding your every move, your emotional anchor, and your moral approval board, she starts to question whether she's actually with a man or simply a mirror reflecting her own moods. And that doubt grows quietly, spreading like rust through the machinery of attraction. She will test you harder, she will challenge your decisions more often, she will provoke you, not because she wants to destroy you, but because she is desperate to feel your strength. She is poking you, searching for the steel beneath the soft flesh. And if she never finds it, if all she ever meets is compliance and apology, she won't stay. A woman might say she wants you to listen, to be sweet, to care deeply, and all of that is fine and good. But when your care metastasizes into the sacrifice of your soul, when your listening turns into spineless agreement, when your sweetness erodes the very edge that makes you a man, that's when she starts to lose interest. She may not even understand why. She'll just start withdrawing. She'll become cold, distant, irritable. She'll complain that she's not feeling it anymore. And you'll be left stunned and bewildered, wondering how your campaign of perfect pleasing led directly to you losing her. But the truth is devastatingly simple. She didn't want you to melt into her world. She wanted you to be a world of your own, standing strong and firm beside hers. The downfall of masculine men is often disguised as virtue. You think you're doing the right thing, you think you're being better than the other guys, the arrogant ones, the selfish ones. But what you're actually doing is abdicating your authority in exchange for crumbs of affection. And women, at their core, are not attracted to men who need affection. They are drawn to men who can provide structure, direction, and vision. A man who leads himself is a man she can follow. A man who leads his own emotions instead of becoming their prisoner is the one who creates the potent polarity that is the very root of desire. Every single time you place her needs above your own integrity, you lose a tangible part of yourself. And even if she stays, you begin to notice something chilling. The respect fades. The softness in her eyes vanishes. She stops looking at you like her man and starts seeing you like her project, or worse, her child. And when that happens, the dynamic shifts irrevocably. You'll find yourself constantly on a treadmill, working to impress her, to please her, to keep her interested, and she'll just keep pulling away, not because you're not trying hard enough, but because she's not attracted to the man you've become in the trying. She misses the man you were, the one with the backbone. That so many men today are trained to believe that pleasing women is the righteous path to love. They're told to be nice, to be agreeable, to never ever make her uncomfortable. But the truth is that comfort without strength is not love. It's emotional dependency, and dependency is the antithesis of attraction. She wants to feel your presence, not your desperation. She wants to know that you care, but she also needs to know that you won't crumble the moment she disapproves of something. And most importantly, she wants to know, in her bones, that you will never ever trade your mission for her mood. If you've ever found yourself walking on eggshells, constantly apologizing for things you didn't do, avoiding necessary conflict just to keep a fragile peace, you're not being kind, you're being controlled. And women don't respect men they can control. They test you for a reason. They challenge you not because they hate you, but because they want to feel safe in your leadership. When you cave, they feel insecure. When you hold your frame, they feel protected. And this is the great paradox most men never learn. Pleasing her makes her anxious. Leading her makes her feel at home. And this isn't about being harsh, cold, or emotionless. It's about being solid, grounded, clear. It's about knowing who you are and refusing to let go of that sacred ground just to make someone else comfortable for a fleeting moment. True masculinity doesn't seek approval. It creates direction. It draws people in, not because it begs for validation, but because it radiates purpose. And women are biologically, spiritually wired to respond to that kind of presence. When she feels your direction, she surrenders. When she feels your weakness, she withdraws. It's instinctual, it's primal, and it's real. So if you're constantly trying to prove that you're good enough, that you'll do anything for her, that you're different from the rest, you have already lost. Because true masculine power doesn't need to prove itself, it simply is. It speaks through decisive action, not through desperate apologies, through calm consistency, not through emotional performance. And the man who understands this never finds himself trying to please because he's too damn focused on leading, on building, on creating a life that invites the right woman to join him, not to control him. The downfall of masculine men is subtle. It creeps in when you start ignoring your gut instinct. When you start prioritizing her comfort over your own truth, when you let her moods dictate your moves. But the real tragedy is that it doesn't just ruin your relationships, it ruins your sense of self. You stop trusting your own instincts. You become reactive instead of proactive. You lose your fire. And once you've lost your fire, you are no longer a man she can look up to. You're just another soul drifting in the unpredictable wind of her approval. And that's a storm no man survives intact. So reclaim your fire. Reclaim your spine, reclaim your masculine edge. Stop trying to please her and start standing in your truth. Lead with conviction, move with clarity. And if she can't handle your strength, let her go, because the right woman won't want to tame you. She'll want to join you, to support you, to submit to your presence, not because you forced her, but because you earned it by being who you are, fully, fiercely, and unapologetically. The modern man has been so bombarded with messages about emotional sensitivity, validation, and constant approval seeking that he has forgotten one of the most ancient truths. Masculinity isn't about being liked, it's about being respected. And the moment you start prioritizing being liked by a woman, you begin to systematically compromise everything that makes you attractive to her. You start adjusting your words, softening your truth, and tailoring your presence to avoid upsetting her. But in doing so, you erase the very edge that made her curious about you in the first place. You become predictable, passive, and ultimately, powerless. Trying to please her turns your masculinity into a performance, and she can feel the artifice. She knows when you're bending over backwards to avoid tension, when your smiles are rehearsed, when your silence is fear-driven rather than composed. And here's the brutal part. The more you try to be her dream guy by sacrificing your own standards, the less real she finds you. And women are wired to test for realness. She'll push your buttons just to see if there's something solid underneath. If all she finds is a desperate need for validation and a crippling fear of loss, she disconnects, emotionally and sexually. Pleasing a woman becomes your downfall the moment you make her emotions your mission. You start managing her feelings, instead of mastering your own frame. And when you live like that, you're no longer living for yourself. You're living inside the claustrophobic echo chamber of her moods. That kind of man may look happy on the outside, a portrait of devotion, but inside he's hollow, disoriented, constantly scanning the emotional radar for any sign that she might pull away. And when she finally does, he's shattered. Not because she left, but because he built his entire identity around the fragile architecture of keeping her there. There is a vast difference between leading with love and living for approval. One is an act of strength, the other is a form of slavery. A man who leads with love sets boundaries, even if it disappoints her in the moment. He makes decisions based on what's right, not what's easy. He is willing to lose her before he loses himself. That man builds real trust, real polarity, real, enduring attraction, because she knows she can't manipulate him with tears or tantrums. She knows he's grounded, and even when she's emotionally storming, she knows that her storm won't knock him off his center. He is her lighthouse dot every time you try to please her at the cost of your principles. You train her to expect less from you and more from herself. That sounds like a good thing, a modern virtue, until she starts resenting you for the very leadership you gave away. She'll say you're too passive, too soft, too agreeable, and you'll be left stunned, wondering how being such a good man got you rejected. But the truth is, you weren't a good man. You were a convenient man, a man who showed up without his power. No woman stays in love with a man she doesn't deeply respect. The minute you abandon your values for her validation, you betray your own masculine nature, and that betrayal doesn't go unnoticed. You feel it in your gut, you feel it when you look in the mirror, you feel it in the quiet, late-night moments when you know you should have spoken your truth, but you chose the cowardice of silence instead. And that guilt builds, that shame compounds, until one day you realize you're no longer a man in her life. You're just a placeholder, a safety net, a man she keeps around until someone with real presence comes along. This is why so many men feel blindsided. When women leave them after years of loyalty and doing everything right, they think their love was enough. But love without edge becomes mere comfort, and comfort without challenge becomes suffocating boredom. She might care about you, she might even cry when she leaves, but she won't stay if your only mission in life was to make her happy. Because deep down, she never wanted to be your mission. She wanted to be your reward, a cherished companion on your path, not the path itself. She will test your strength, not because she is cruel, but because it's how her biology determines if she is safe. If your love disappears the moment she disagrees with you, she knows it was never strong to begin with. If you crumble when she cries, she knows she is leading the relationship. And if she is leading, she can't fully relax. She can't surrender. She can't be the woman she truly wants to be, because she's too busy holding up the masculine frame that you abandoned. And eventually, that burden wears her down until she walks away in exhaustion, not hate. Pleasing women becomes a crippling habit for men who never learn to validate themselves. They look to her smile as a mirror of their own worth. They need her approval like oxygen. And when she pulls it away, they panic. Not because she's gone, but because their entire identity was wrapped in her affection. That's why true masculine growth begins not with more pleasing, but with more presence, with silence, with knowing who you are when no one is watching. That kind of man doesn't need to chase validation. He radiates a quiet certainty, and that energy, that's what she's starving for. So the next time you feel that familiar, gutless urge to please her, to edit your words, to suppress your truth, to apologize for your own masculinity, pause. Ask yourself, am I leading or am I begging? Am I holding my frame or am I hoping to avoid discomfort? Because every moment you choose peace over power, comfort over conviction, validation over truth, you shrink. And women don't chase men who shrink. They crave the man who can love them without losing himself. The man who listens but doesn't submit, who cares but won't be controlled, who stays rooted in his values whether she smiles or storms. That man he never pleases. He leads. The modern world trains men to mistake compliance for connection. You've been told that the more agreeable you are, the more she trusts you. The more sacrifices you make, the more she sees your value. But what this really does is make you invisible. It takes away your bite, your mystery, your challenge. And women don't desire men who are always within easy reach, always bending, always softening themselves for her comfort. They desire men who sharpen them, men who are unapologetically real, who don't need to be needed. That's the paradox. She may say she wants someone who always agrees, but what stirs her soul is someone who isn't afraid to disagree. Your downfall begins the moment you stop standing for something just to keep her happy. You cancel plans with friends she doesn't like. You stay silent when her friends say something you know is wrong. You become less of a man so she'll feel more comfortable. and she will thank you with disinterest. She smile politely and, slowly, imperceptibly, detach. Because now you're not the man she admired. You're a hollowed-out shell of the masculine energy that first pulled her in, and every compromise you made to please her becomes another reason she loses respect for you. Until finally, one day, she looks at you and feels nothing at all. A woman feels your presence fully, your unapologetic masculine center. She feels something she can't get anywhere else. Not from compliments, not from validation, not from being placed on a pedestal. She feels the edge of a man who doesn't flinch, who doesn't sell his soul for her affection, who loves her, maybe, but doesn't fear losing her. And in that moment, she's not thinking about leaving, she's thinking about earning you. That's the shift. The man who tries to please is always chasing. The man who leads with his own strength, he is the prize, and she knows it. If you're constantly giving in, constantly seeking peace over truth, constantly sacrificing your instincts for her mood, what you're building is not a relationship. It's a performance. One where you're the actor and she's the critic. But no matter how perfectly you play your role, one day she'll get bored of the show. Because women don't stay with men who entertain them with compliance. They stay with men who challenge them into growth, who love them without being afraid of upsetting them, who never lose their masculine edge just to be liked. She will test you, and not because she's mean or manipulative. She tests you because she needs to know, are you real? Can you handle her fire without flinching? Can you say no when it matters? Can you walk away if your values are disrespected? Or will you crumble? The moment she sees you flinch, beg, or soften into submission, something dies. Her trust in your leadership, her faith in your strength, her desire, because even if she doesn't say it, what she truly wants is a man who cannot be broken by emotion, a man who is anchored no matter what storm she brings. Trying to please her makes you predictable, and predictable is boring. If she knows how you'll respond every single time, if you're always seeking harmony, always avoiding tension, then you're not leading, you're reacting, and reaction is feminine energy. Polarity dies the moment you give up your leadership to earn her comfort, and when polarity dies, so does attraction. She stops craving you, she stops admiring you, and in time, she starts looking elsewhere, not because she wants to cheat, but because you have become emotionally replaceable. Masculine energy isn't about pleasing, it's about presence. A powerful, calm, unshakable presence that says, this is who I am, this is where I am going, and I don't need you to like it for me to keep moving. That energy is rare, it's intoxicating, and women will chase it more than any nice text, any expensive gift, or any overwrought apology. They'll crave it because it gives them something they can't get from anyone else. A man who doesn't need them but still chooses them. That's the energy she cry for, the man she break her own rules for, the one she fight to keep. There is a deep, gutting shame that men feel when they realize they gave it all away just to get nothing back. When you look back at all the ways you tried to win her with kindness, with attention, with endless affection, and it still wasn't enough, it's crushing, but it's also clarifying. Because now you know, it was never about doing more. It was about being more. Being grounded, being sovereign, being a man who doesn't chase because he's too focused on building a world that others want to be a part of. That realization, that's your rebirth, so stop trying to please, start standing tall. Let your no mean no, let your time be sacred, let your standards be non-negotiable. Be kind, but never compliant. Be loving, but never and understand that her biggest turn-on isn't your agreement, it's your edge, your refusal to collapse, your quiet confidence that says, I don't need to be liked. I need to be respected. That man, he doesn't ask for attention. He commands it. The man who no longer tries to please is the man who finally gets what he truly deserves. Not a woman who tolerates him, but one who admires him. Not a relationship built on eggshells, but one built on the bedrock of strength. The world doesn't reward men who bend. It rewards men who hold their truth, hold their standards, hold their vision. And the woman who can rise to meet that level, she'll never want you to please her. She'll just want to follow your lead. The first step out of the hollowed-out cavern of the pleaser is to sit in the ruins and not look away. It's a landscape of shame, littered with the ghosts of 1,000 small surrenders. The man who has lost himself to a woman doesn't just feel heartbreak. He feels a profound and disorienting self-betrayal. He looks back and sees a timeline not of love, but of concessions. He remembers the weekends he gave up his passions, the friends he let drift away, the truths he swallowed like bitter pills, all for a peace that was never real and for a love that was conditional on his own erasure. This is the clarifying agony. It is the necessary crucible where a new man can be forged, but only if he is willing to burn. The initial impulse is to blame her. She was too demanding. he'll tell himself. She was impossible to please. But this is a comforting lie, another layer of softness that prevents growth. The harsher, more useful truth is that she was merely being the wind. Man is not meant to be angry at the wind for blowing. He is meant to build a house with strong foundations. She was simply acting according to her nature, testing the structure he presented to her. When she found it was made of paper match and good intentions, it collapsed. She did not cause the collapse. She merely revealed the weakness that was already there. The responsibility lies not with the storm, but with the architect. This realization is the true beginning. It's the moment a man stops seeing himself as a victim of a woman's whims and starts seeing himself as the sole proprietor of his own soul. It is the reclamation of agency. From this point, every choice becomes a brick. He can either use it to rebuild the same fragile prison of approval seeking, or he can begin, brick by painful brick, to construct the fortress of his own sovereignty. Journey of rebuilding is not a glamorous montage. It is a quiet, often lonely, and brutally internal war. It starts with the reclamation of a single word. No, not an angry no, not a petulant no, but a calm, grounded, and unapologetic no. Saying no to a social gathering he doesn't want to attend. Saying no to a request that violates his time or energy. It feels, at first, like an act of profound selfishness, a betrayal of the good man programming. His nervous system screams in protest, conditioned to equate disagreement with danger. But with each repetition, a new neural pathway is carved. The fear subsides, replaced by a strange and unfamiliar feeling, self-respect. From the reclamation of no, he moves to the reclamation of his time and his space. The man who pleased gave all his time away as if it were worthless currency. The man in recovery learns that his time is his most sacred asset. He schedules time for himself with the same non-negotiable gravity he once scheduled dates. He resurrects his abandoned passions. The dusty guitar comes out of its case. The woodworking tools are cleaned and sharpened. The gym membership is renewed. He does these things not to become more attractive to women, but to become more attractive to himself. He learns to find a state of flow, a deep and fulfilling engagement with an activity where the need for external validation simply dissolves. In these moments, he is not thinking about being liked or approved of. He is simply being anded. In that state of pure being, his masculine core begins to regenerate. He must also reclaim his mission. A man without a mission is a ship without a rudder, easily tossed about by the emotional currents of others. He was a man whose mission had become a woman. Now he must find his own true north. What drives him? What does he want to build, create, or achieve in this world, independent of a partner? It doesn't have to be a grandiose ambition like curing a disease or building a corporate empire. It can be mastering a craft. It can be achieving physical excellence. It can be building a strong community of men. The what is less important than the why. The mission provides direction, and a man with direction projects an energy that is intrinsically compelling. He stops drifting and starts moving with purpose. This process is where he confronts his deepest fears. The fear of being alone is a powerful specter. The pleaser fears solitude because in solitude, he is forced to confront his own emptiness. The sovereign man learns to embrace solitude as a space for clarity and regeneration. He learns to be his own companion, to enjoy his own thoughts, to find peace in his own presence. He proves to himself that he can survive and even thrive without a woman's constant affection. This is not an embrace of bitter misogyny or a permanent withdrawal from women. It is a necessary rite of passage. Only the man who does not fear being alone is capable of entering a relationship without neediness. He can then love a woman not because he needs her to fill his void, but because she complements his already full life. As he rebuilds his internal world, he will be tested. Life has a funny way of checking to see if the lessons have truly stuck. An old flame, perhaps even the one who was the catalyst for his collapse, will reappear. She'll send a casual text, a nostalgic message, a feeler to see if the door is still open. This is the great examination. The old man, the pleaser, would have felt a surge of adrenaline, a desperate hope for a second chance. He would have replied instantly, bent his schedule, and offered up his newly found peace on a platter, eager to prove he had changed. The new man, the sovereign man, will feel something different. He will feel a calm detachment. He will not be bitter or cruel. He will simply be centered. He might reply politely, but he will not jump. He will not sacrifice his routine. He will not betray his newfound standards. He will lead the interaction, if it happens at all, from a place of quiet strength. He will demonstrate, through his unhurried responses and his unwavering frame, that his world no longer revolves around her. He is willing to lose her, for good this time, rather than lose himself again. and in that moment, she will feel his power more acutely than ever before. She will feel the profound and irreversible shift. She might be saddened by it, she might even be angered by it, but deep down, she will respect it, for she is now in the presence of the man she had always unconsciously hoped he would become, but only after she was no longer his prize. Then comes the next stage, new encounters. When he begins to interact with new women, he is not the same man. He doesn't enter conversations with a hidden agenda of seeking approval. He is not performing, he is simply present. He listens intently but doesn't agree reflectively. He shares his opinions without apology. He maintains eye contact. He is not afraid to create tension, to tease, to challenge. He leads with a quiet confidence that is not arrogant but deeply authentic. A woman will feel this difference in the first 5 minutes. She is used to men who are either overtly aggressive or passively agreeable. This man is neither. He is something else entirely. He is grounded. He has a presence that is both engaging and completely self-contained. He is a mystery not because he is playing games, but because his sense of self is not dependent on her reaction. She will find herself leaning in, becoming more curious, more open, when he sets a boundary, ending a date at a time of his choosing. For instance, because he has an early start for a project he's passionate about, she doesn't feel rejected. She feels a surge of respect. Here is a man whose life is his own. His attention feels valuable precisely because it is not given away freely to just anyone. This is where he learns the true meaning of polarity. By embodying his masculine core, his direction, his purpose, his unwavering presence, he invites her to relax into her feminine essence. She doesn't have to lead, she doesn't have to test for strength constantly. She doesn't have to manage the emotional temperature of the interaction. He is holding the frame. In his presence, she feels safe to be soft, to be receptive, to surrender. This surrender is not a sign of weakness on her part. It is the highest form of trust a woman can give a man. It is a gift she offers only to a man whose leadership she implicitly trusts. He doesn't demand it. His very being invites it. The sovereign man redefines his relationship with love itself. He no longer sees it as a desperate search for a missing piece of himself. He sees it as a shared journey between two whole individuals. He chooses a partner not based on how she makes him feel about himself, but on how her values align with his. Does she support his mission? Does she respect his standards? Does she add to his life without demanding to become the center of it? He becomes incredibly selective, not out of arrogance, but out of a profound soft. He understands that the wrong partner can be a catastrophic drain on his energy and purpose, and he protects his inner peace with the ferocity of a king protecting his kingdom. He learns to be kind without being compliant. He can be compassionate and empathetic to her feelings, but he does not allow her feelings to dictate his reality or his decisions. He can listen to her emotional storms without getting swept away in them. He becomes her lighthouse, not her lifeboat. He doesn't rescue her from her emotions. He provides a steady, unmoving point of light that she can navigate by, allowing her to find her own way back to shore. This emotional strength is perhaps the most potent and attractive quality he develops. The ultimate realization for the man on this journey is that the goal was never to get the girl. The goal was to become the man who is whole, grounded, and free. The woman who joins him on his path is a cherished companion, a reward for his inner work, but she is not the prize. The prize is his own sovereignty. It is the quiet, unshakable peace that comes from knowing who you are, what you stand for, and where you are going. It is the freedom from the tyranny of needing to be liked. The story of his downfall was a story of shrinking. He shrank his ambitions, his friendships, his very soul, to fit into the small, confining box of a woman's approval. The story of his reclamation is a story of expansion. He expands back into his purpose, his passions, and his truth. He stands tall, not in defiance of women, but in service to his own highest potential. And in doing so, he becomes a beacon. He becomes the man that other men look to and wonder, how is he so calm, so centered? He becomes the man that the right woman looks at and thinks, that is a man I can follow. He no longer lives on a tightrope of anxiety, trying to balance her moods. He walks on the solid ground of his own integrity. He understands that his refusal to please is not an act of withholding love, but the highest form of offering it. For he is finally offering her the one thing she could never get from the man he used to be, the profound and beautiful gift of his true, uncompromised, and unwavering masculine self. And in the presence of that man, she doesn't want to be pleased. She just wants to be with him.